I'm just gonna get into the meat of this topic. The Shadow and Bone show is messy and out of focus as a storyline, but I think it has some potential of doing better than its original source or sources. This show is a weird hybrid adaptation of two fantasy book series by Leigh Bardugo, which follows the happenings of the Grishaverse. And it's fine. I'll begin with Alina and we'll go from there. We're gonna have to go with the flow on this one because my brain cannot organize the show for the life of me. Alina doesn't feel like a protagonist to root for. All her motivations rely on Mal or the Darkling. Her motivations to destroy the fold is reliant on antagonizing the Darkling, and even then she fails to do it just to save Mal, which doesn't work either, so she just fails basically. She has no agency as a character unless one of the male characters forces motivation on her. Oh yeah, and she also gets her entire team killed. Mal gets stationed in a ship that's separate from Alina. Sad noises. So Alina decides to burn the map that allowed these ships to safely travel through the fold. That way the captain could bring a cartographer with them to navigate the fold. Alina is a cartographer. What this nincompoop didn't realize is that she's not a good cartographer. That's also shown in the book. So the captain naturally got the entire cartographer team involved so they can guarantee safety, which fails horribly because they don't have a map. No one was making a map in this entire thing. They were just staring at the fold. It would have been safe if Alina wasn't thirsty for a dude. How am I supposed to root for that? I don't like Mal and Alina, by the way, in case that wasn't clear. Mal and Alina. That's really hard to say. They're melodramatic, and Leigh Bardugo desperately tries to use this romance as something that's worth fighting for. Just stop it, please. It didn't work in the book. It's not going to work here. The show or the books never let me allow for myself whether I can root for this couple. Every second scene is just like this Shakespearean level sequence that pretends like this couple isn't just a trope done badly. Funnily enough, this show actually does a better job at Mal and Alina because this time Mal is not an absolute prick. I said this in a previous video, but in the book, Mal never felt like an improvement from Kirigan. Alina's relationship with the Darkling was predatory and toxic, and she was right to break it off. But Mal didn't have the right tools to be a good option either. He was overtly aggressive, he lashed out on Alina, and never reflected on his behavior as a character. That's more Leigh Bardugo's fault, but still. In the show, Mal actually feels like a grounding for Alina in a world where she's put in such a godlike position. Even though I don't like both the actors' performances in the show, I can still believe that Mal is a better option than the Darkling, which is basically the bare minimum, but what can you do? The writing for these two is still not good. Alina has two facial expressions and Mal just has the one. Where are your personalities? This show took a weird direction with the Darkling that I'm not so sure I like. Fans of Shadow and Bone often credit Leigh Bardugo for showing Kirigan for the villain that he is. It's a bit of a stretch compliment because one, a lot of the fandom shipped Darklina, which is proof that it didn't work. And two, the Darkling was never a well-written villain. He was just an obvious villain. Those are two very different things. In the show, the Darkling kind of gets a sad backstory. It's a badly written one, and fridging is never a good idea, but the whole existence of the Darkling's backstory kind of ruins him as a villain. You can have a backstory and still have a hateable villain, but the show doesn't frame it like that. It frames him as this rebel who wanted rights for the Grisha and had to take extreme measures to do so. That feels more morally grey than evil. Also, the funniest part is that Kirigan's mother, I don't know her name, so I'm just gonna call her Baba Yaga. She says that Kirigan was a playboy and he tricked girls and stuff. Okay, but then in the next episode you see Kirigan crying over the girl he seemed to genuinely love. So either Baba Yaga is an inconsiderate mother, which is not far off, or the show doesn't revise their scripts to make everything thematically cohesive, which also makes sense. Nina and Mateus are the most useless couple in both the show and the books. They have a good political rivalry going on, which would have been intriguing on its own, but oh no, Nina sees his shirtless body and she talks a lot and they're naked and he's hot. Stop it. I am not buying their sexual tension. Stop making me buy it. These two had no place in season 1. You could have taken out their entire arc and squished it into a 2-minute backstory. Oh wait, that's exactly what the book did, because the book was written by Leigh Bardugo when she actually wanted to write a good story. Six of Crows was done so dirty in this show, which is Bad because Six of Crows, the duology, is without a doubt a far better crafted book than the Shadow and Bone book. It handled its messages and its themes with so much more understanding and maturity. Shadow and Bone really doesn't respect its own message. It's trying to do a whole toxic relationship allegory, but it's so up the arse with their romance story that the allegory falls apart. Six of Crows takes its time with their issues, although the romance still gets a bit too much, and I don't think Nina and Mateus should have been romantically involved. It still is a better story with a stronger narrative than Shadow and Bone. Not only are the crows overshadowed, but the themes from both stories clash really hard. Shadow and Bone is a very fantastical and magic-fueled story, while Six of Crows has a more gritty feel to it. For instance, our main character is this magical sun summoner who's crying over a friend she can't make out with anymore. And then you have someone like Inej, an assassin who is literally trying to escape prostitution. The show gives long dramatic sequences to Mal and Alina being separated, but Inej gets like 2 scenes with vague dialogue. Not even that, but a lot of emotional beats get looked over for the romance. Mal loses his friends and they start playing like backstories with Alina at that moment. Why? Jenya is also getting repeatedly assaulted by the king, but she has a crush on David. Isn't that cute? This show doesn't want emotional beats, it wants a romance with some fantasy war stuff happening in the background. So it's basically Crescent City without the trash croissant scene, which is infinitely better. I know these 2 books are in the same universe, but tonally and thematically they are telling very different stories. To mesh them together like this creates a tonally dissonant story with no central theme. I heard that they are going to focus more on the Shadow and Bone side of the story in the 2nd season that just came out. While Shadow and Bone is weaker, I think it's smarter for the show to keep its focus on one narrative. Six of Crows doesn't fit here story, character, or theme-wise. I'd much prefer it if they turned Six of Crows into a spin-off and left Shadow and Bone with whatever it's trying to do. I'm going to watch the 2nd season and let you know how I feel. There are quite a few fantasy shows out there and I do want to make some more stuff on them. If I have something new to say about the 2nd season, then I'll follow it up, but we'll see.